The Bad Batch is back today with a 2-episode premiere, Spoils of War and Ruins of War. So how does it feel returning to this series after some delays? It feels pretty good. I know some fans were wondering if we'd get tonal whiplash, going from the very serious and grounded Andor to the more lighthearted and exaggerated world of Star Wars animation. That was never a worry of mine, and I didn't find it jarring at all. It's just a different flavor of the same universe. I also think the delays worked in the series' favor because these first 2 episodes connect pretty well to both Andor and Tales of the Jedi, but I'll cover those moments as we get to them. I was relieved to see the opening sequence was the very same clip shown at Star Wars Celebration and featured heavily in the trailers. Let's just get the footage we've seen out of the way. It's a fun moment that catches us up with the Batch months after the events of Season 1. Every character model has been updated, Omega looks older, and most importantly, she is a highly capable member of the crew at this point, defending the Havoc Marauder with her bow, hanging off the ship to save her friends as they extract some unknown item from this unknown planet. It all feels so much like the opening to an Indiana Jones film. We're thrown into the very end of an adventure. It's a very George Lucas thing to do. When he was developing Star Wars, basing it off of the Flash Gordon serials, he wanted the audience to feel like they didn't have all the details and they were just being dropped into the middle of a story. Because back in the Flash Gordon days, you often would miss episodes. It was difficult to see them all, so I enjoyed feeling that in the introduction of the Bad Batch, and we're going to be talking about more Indiana Jones similarities throughout the rest of this video. Returning to Sid's, I was so relieved to see AZ-3 is still around. I was kind of hoping he would be part of the crew after he helped save all their lives on Kamino, but I will accept him hanging around at Sid's bar, as long as he's happy. We also meet a new character, Fee, voiced by Wanda Sykes. She's a pirate friend of Sid's, and apparently the job the Batch was just on was for her, or at least she takes the crate they worked so hard to get, but she has provided Sid with some intel on a new job that could solve a lot of problems for our heroes. They're heading to Serenno, homeworld of Count Dooku. The Empire is currently plundering his castle. They're claiming the spoils of war, and if the Batch can steal even a little of it for themselves, they'll be able to buy their freedom, as Sid puts it. Here's where things start to connect back to Andor. Sid recognizes that just because she is comfortable on Ord Mantell now, it will not last forever. The Empire will continue to spread its influence, eventually shutting down her operation. So they all need to start planning for retirement. If they steal some of Dooku's treasure, they'll all be rich enough to disappear. Which is exactly what Cassian wanted to do. He helped pull off the Aldhani heist, and then he tried to disappear on Niamos. It's a nice thought, but it doesn't work that way. It never does. Every person who was ever hidden or tried to hide from the Empire, no matter where they went, they were eventually discovered. Galen Erso, Cassian Andor, Luke Skywalker, burying your head in the sand does nothing but let the Empire grow stronger, and they will eventually come for you. Echo is seemingly the only member of the Batch to recognize that. Hunter wants to do what's right by Omega. He wants to give her a comfortable life and a peaceful childhood, which is good and noble, but Echo sees that hiding from the Empire now will only make Omega's life more difficult in the future. His experiences with Omega have also made him realize that she's not the only child that deserves peace and comfort. That's what he means when he says their lives are the way they are because of her. She forever changed who they were and their purpose as a team. Echo wants to do more. That said, I think he also genuinely is frustrated that he has to find a balance between fighting the Empire and protecting Omega. I get the sense he would have thrown himself into the fight completely were it not for her. She overhears the conversation, and I think that was her takeaway as well. I love that he got several strong scenes like this in the premiere episodes. One of my biggest criticisms of the first season was that he didn't get enough time to shine. He held all these same beliefs, he voiced his opinion, but I'm glad to see him speaking up right away. I'm glad these issues are being addressed up front. I don't think it's a problem that the Bad Batch is exploring similar themes to Andor. Like I said, it's a different flavor, and it's exposing a different audience to the same important ideas. But I get the feeling the Bad Batch won't spend all season convincing Hunter to agree with Echo. I think that'll be more streamlined, and the 2 series will become more and more distinct. As they depart for the castle, I liked the little beat of Hunter asking Omega if she was coming with them. I know she's hesitating because she overheard what Echo said and misunderstood his meaning, but it's also good to see Hunter's growth from Season 1. He was very concerned with Omega's safety, and part of his development was starting to allow her to go on missions with the team, and that is still the case. The mission itself begins and is a lot of fun. There's a great stealthy version of the Bad Batch theme playing the entire time. Omega finds a pile of gold and jewels, and Tech explains that much of Dooku's wealth came from the planets he plundered during the Clone Wars, which we did see in episodes like Liberty on Ryloth, where Wat Tambor stole the Ryloth arc. By the way, I was so hoping to see that again in these episodes, but we don't. Anyway, Echo goes on to say Dooku was corrupt, and it made me so sad thinking back to the Dooku episodes of Tales of the Jedi, because Dooku wanted to fight corruption in the Republic, the Senate, and the Jedi Council. We got to understand exactly why he felt that fight was necessary, but of course in his quest to fight darkness, he lost himself to it. He became what he wanted to destroy. The Bad Batch was originally supposed to air during Andor and before Tales of the Jedi. I don't know why it was delayed, but maybe it was purposeful, because this release order is working out pretty well. Omega asks if they're any better than Dooku, and Echo rationalizes their own theft of plundered treasure by saying they will use it for a greater purpose, which is exactly what Dooku must have told himself. While they all discuss philosophy, the Empire seals the ship and launches. Wrecker and Hunter are chased into Castle Serenno's throne room, and it was great seeing that location again. The revelation that Dooku had an escape elevator at his desk is perfect, although I was hoping it would be an escape slide, like we saw in the Clone Wars episode Dooku captured, but oh well. The rest of the episode is exciting. I liked Omega helping save the day by referencing her studies of Imperial ships, even impressing Tech. Her plan is to send them plummeting back to the planet, and that's how it ends. Fortunately, we get to move right into the second episode, Ruins of War, where we see Hunter and Wrecker escape the castle and head into the literal Ruins of War, a former city that was destroyed by Imperial bombardment. Meanwhile, the cargo container's re-entry thrusters re-engage, crash-landing Tech, Echo, and Omega back on Serenno. And for another Andor connection, I was terrified we were about to have another Nimic-style death on our hands. Instead, we just got a Nimic-style injury after a box lands on Tech's leg. But he survives, and they all limp away from the war chest, despite Omega's protests. Then they run into a man named Romar, a survivor of the city's destruction. He reveals that Dooku even plundered his own planet to fund his quest for power, that the war chest is made up of Serenian treasure just as much as it's made up of treasure from outside worlds. Again, this is such a good callback to Tales of the Jedi, where we saw senators turning their backs on their own people for selfish gain. Dooku thought what he was doing was for the good of the galaxy, but he became no better than the senators that led him to fight corruption in the first place. Romar and the people of Serenno have some claim to the war chest, but he wants none of it. He knows that a risky quest for treasure at any cost is foolish, but Omega is having a hard time letting that go. I love the scene she shares with Romar where he gives her a kaleidoscope. First, it's a good reminder of how sheltered she was on Kamino. Back at the beginning of Season 1, we got to see her joy at experiencing dirt for the first time. She didn't have toys growing up, she never got a real childhood, and Romar is trying to give her a piece of that, to remind her to hold on to those things and those people that bring true joy, and to let go of the empty promise of future fortunes. It's always a balance in life. Yes, you should have some level of thought towards the future. Master Yoda tells Obi-Wan to be mindful of the future, but Qui-Gon reminds him not at the expense of the present. I think that's the inner conflict shared by Echo and Omega. Echo wants to do more to fight the Empire, but he's being a little careless about how he talks about it, especially in front of Omega, and that leads her to do something careless because she just wants to make Echo happy. Hunter wants to give Omega a normal life, and she wants to give Echo what he considers to be a normal life too. I love that she is able to sneak out once Tech becomes infatuated with some piece of, well, tech. That's another great scene. He views the data core as a separatist archive, and Romar corrects him, saying it's Serenian, because Serenno was around long before the separatist movement ever existed. Tech, the smartest clone in the batch, had never thought of Serenians as just Serenian. He was created to fight them, so he has always viewed them as an enemy, as some other to be feared. That's how the Empire functions. They just lump anyone not Imperial into the same group. I think that's the more more metaphorical ruin of war, the loss of humanity between enemies, but Tech shows flexibility and an open mind. When presented with the reality of the situation, he enthusiastically changes his outlook and helps Romar. We all have blind spots, we all have moments in life where our ignorance comes through and we have to learn new things, and when that happens, we should be like Tech, keep an open mind. A great lesson. Too bad he was so involved in learning it that he allowed Omega to sneak out. Echo catches up to her, and they both share a moment from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. They almost have their treasure. They nearly have what they've both been after this entire time. But Echo won't become Dooku. He doesn't want to get the war chest and fight the Empire if it means losing Omega, and he tells her what she needs to hear. Let it go. That's like beat for beat Indiana Jones and his father almost getting the Holy Grail. And I just did a video about Indiana Jones references and Easter eggs in Star Wars, and now they go and add another one? But seriously, it's a great scene, and I personally enjoyed the parallel. During all of that, Wrecker and Hunter evade capture from the clone captain Wilco and his troops. They're able to do so when Wrecker quite literally becomes a tank, carrying a cannon around and blasting his way to their ship. That was awesome. They pick up Tech, Echo, and Omega, and Romar makes sure to give her the toy before she leaves. I love that she smiles at it the same way Wrecker smiles at his new toy, the cannon. Echo gets some time to speak to Omega and reassure her that they are who they are because of her, not in spite of her, which is really sweet. Again, I'm so glad he got what I would consider to be his first real arc of the series. I understand why the rest of the batch got the focus in Season 1, because we were still getting to know them, but it's time to let Echo get some spotlight, and these episodes were a good start. For our final scene, we catch up with Wilco as he gets a visit from Rampart. This is the second scene where we see Wilco without his helmet. The first was after Wrecker's rampage, and we see the pain of loss over his fallen men. I think taking off the helmet is a subtle shift in his character, and maybe even a sign that his inhibitor chip is wearing off after being confronted with clone-on-clone violence. Rampart asks him to remove any mention of Clone Force 99 from his report, and he refuses, which is another pretty obvious sign that he will not blindly follow orders anymore. Unfortunately, we won't get to see where his character goes because Rampart shoots him for his disobedience, but I do think this moment is a sign of things to come in the series. The clones will not be under the control of the inhibitor chip forever. I am excited to see what happens when more and more of them break free. But that's for future episode breakdowns. Spoils of War and Ruins of War work together as a fun reintroduction to the Bad Batch. They weren't my favorite episodes of the series or anything, but I'm glad to have this little family back for the next few months. Let me know what you thought of the season premiere in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Bad Batch coverage, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and consider checking out our Patreon page for video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode as well. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.